The hour of 7 p.m. having arrived, I'll call to order this regular meeting of Keene City Council. The meeting is being broadcast. Oh, can I have everybody in the room quiet down, please? We need to start the meeting. Thank you. The hour of 7 p.m. having arrived, I'll call to order this regular meeting of Keene City Council. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and Spectrum Channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted by the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. If you'd like to receive an electronic City Council packet to reference while viewing future broadcasts, please contact the City Clerk's office during regular business hours or go to the city's website and subscribe to the city meetings email list. The agenda is also accessible from any mobile device. I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Brian J. Lake.
Here.
Michael J. Remy. Michael Giacomo.
Here.
Randy L. Filio.
Here.
Robert C. Williams.
Here.
Philip M. Jones.
Present.
Andrew Madison.
Here.
Chris E. Roberts. Riley C. Omerod.
Here.
Bettina A. Chadbourne.
Here.
Catherine I. Workman. Mitchell H. Greenwald.
Here.
Kate M. Bosley.
Here.
Thomas F. Powers.
Here.
All right, thank you. Councilor Remy has requested to participate remotely tonight. He did give the required 24-hour notice if there are no objections. Councilor Remy, will you please state your name, the reason for your remote participation, and whether or not anyone is in the room with you?
I am Councilor Remy. I am traveling for work. I am currently at the Boston airport. There's no one around me now, but that will not be the case through the entire meeting.
All right, thank you. Councilor Madison, would you please lead us in the pledge? Next item of business is our minutes from the previous meeting. I'm looking at Councilor Powers for motion. Councilor Bosley for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to accept the minutes of the August 17th, 2023 council meeting as presented.
Second.
And we have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake.
Yes.
And Counselor Remy.
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo.
Yes.
Counselor Filio.
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Roberts. Counselor Omerod.
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne.
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald.
Yes.
And Counselor Bosley.
Yes.
And Counselor Powers.
Yes.
And that is unanimous. They are adopted. I have one announcement. There are two workshops coming up for the council goals. The first is on September 18th. The second is going to be on October 16th. These workshops will be at Heberden Hall at 6 p.m. The setup for these meetings will not accommodate remote access, so please make every effort to attend. Light refreshments will be served in advance of those workshops. And that brings us to public hearing, and I'd ask the clerk to please read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held to consider ordinance O 2023-12, submitted by Michael F. Conway, agent for Monadnock Habitat for Humanity. The ordinance proposes to amend the zoning map for a 7.1 acre parcel of land located on 0 Old Walpole Road. Per order of the mayor and councilors of the city of Keene, this 20th day of July, 2023.
Thank you, and I'd recognize Michael Conway to give a description of the change, and Mary Brunner on behalf of the city.
So I'll speak for Michael.
Okay, well, you can go up to the microphone and just state your name and address for the minute taker.
My name is Matt Keenan. I live in Dublin. I am the president of Monadnock Habitat for Humanity.
Great, go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, thank you all for coming. I don't know if you're all here for us, but great turnout. We appreciate the time you've put into this. As I said, I'm the president of Monadnock Habitat for Humanity, and I'm going to give a little bit of a background about who we are and our mission, and kind of as a primer to this hearing. So Monadnock Habitat for Humanity is a local affiliate of Habitat for Humanity International. We're an all-volunteer, not-for-profit 501c3 organization with a mission to build and renovate houses in the Monadnock region to provide decent, safe, and affordable workforce home ownership for our neighbors living in inadequate housing. The traditional Habitat for Humanity model is to build modest homes, roughly 1,100 square feet, using local volunteers and in-kind contributions from area contractors and suppliers to ensure affordability to the families that we serve that otherwise could not buy a home. We fundraise for the required cost to build a home, and we hold a significantly under market value, interest-free mortgage set at an amount that the family can afford. We do not give the family the home. This is not a handout, but it's rather a hand up. We also work with the partner families to educate on household finances and create budgets towards achieving financial stability, as well as training for proper home maintenance and upkeep to protect their investment. So our lot on Old Walpole Road is 7.1 acres in the rural district, which, when we started this development process, required a minimum of 5-acre building lots or 2-acre minimums, but requiring city water and sewer service. We researched the zoning options and determined the way to maximize our impact with as many low-income working families was to spread the significant cost of extending city water over multiple homes. This required our request for zoning map change from rural to low density, LD, reducing the minimum lot requirement to 10,000 square feet. With LD approval, our plan was for up to 8 homes with frontage along Old Walpole Road, leaving the majority of the lot, especially the back abutting Butternut Drive, untouched. We never had any intention of building 30 homes, and we sincerely apologize for scaring the neighbors when that was stated at the first public workshop. In actuality, the lot could not be developed to that extent anyway due to the shape and terrain, as well as groundwater and ledges, etc. We were unaware of the existing water drainage issues in the Butternut Drive neighborhood until it was repeatedly expressed in the first public workshop back in July. As we are concerned with contributing to the situation, we met with city officials and learned they are aware of the issues, but there are no set plans at this time to address that. There are some down the road. Since we started this process, the city of Keene has removed the city water and sewer requirement for 2-acre lots in the rural district. So with all of that said, and with due apologies to everybody concerned for all the time this has taken, Monadnock Habitat for Humanity is hereby withdrawing our application to amend the zoning map. We will revisit the options currently available under the rural zoning designation and make our decision in consideration of all that we have learned during this process. So, a little bit.
Okay. I'll just ask the crowd, keep the responses to a minimum. We've got to allow people to say what they need to say. Thank you.
I don't know if it's appropriate for taking questions or comments, but I'm here, so.
You could take questions from the council, if any of the councilors have questions at this time. Yes, Councilor Greenwald?
Thank you. To the city attorney, it's on. If the application is withdrawn, are we done? Does the hearing need to progress?
No, it wouldn't need to progress. You'd have the opportunity to ask questions casually if you want to, but no one's under obligation to do any of the formal proceedings. In fact, like, we shouldn't until if a new one is submitted.
Okay. Any other questions from councilors? Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming tonight. I guess we are done with that agenda item. Is that correct? All right. Thank you. All right. Yeah, we'll close the hearing. All right, we have a lot of business to do, so I'd ask that you please be quiet. If you're going to leave, then leave quietly. And we're going to go to our next item of business, which is a presentation, and I would invite our city engineer, Don Lucier, to the front to give us an update.
Thank you, Your Honor. Don Lucier, City Engineer. On the screens in front of you, you'll see the presentation that we're going to be providing tonight. You go ahead and switch to there you go. With me tonight is, yeah, just takes a second. With me tonight is Gene McCarthy from McFarland Johnson. They are the consulting engineering firm that the city selected to design this project. As you know, the Lower Winchester Street reconstruction project has been in the CIP for some time now. Work began really in earnest last summer. That was, when we selected the consultant, the mayor and the city council appointed a citizens steering committee. And over the last year, we've been working with the committee to develop alternatives, revise them, refine them, and what have you. And that's going to be the gist of the presentation tonight. Just so for orientation purposes,
Someone go out there and move them along, please.
For orientation purposes, the Lower Winchester Street reconstruction project will extend from the existing roundabout on Route 101 south to the Swansea town line. Actually, the project will extend into Swansea. We're doing this as a sort of a three-party agreement with the town of Swansea, the DOT, and the city. The town of Swansea and DOT pays for everything south of the border. We pay 20% of the improvements within the city limits. And of course, this is a federally funded project, so the Federal Highway Administration is picking up 80% of the project cost. Go ahead to the next one, please. So as I mentioned, federally funded project. It's being managed under what's called the local public agency process. That is a formula process whereby local agencies, rather than the state agency, can administer these federal funds. We're essentially acting as a sub-recipient of this grant to the DOT. There's a very specific formula and process that we have to follow when we're using money under that program. Although the steering committee isn't a requirement of it, there are requirements for public engagement. So one of the first things we did was a listening session. That's a requirement. We have to develop its purpose and needs statement, and that's one of the things that we have to do. And I won't steal too much of Gene's thunder. But we've basically been walking through this process for the last year. And we're at the last bullet on the slide there of proposed action. So the next step in the process is for the sponsor, and in this case, the city council is the sponsor for the project, the recipient of those funds, has to select a proposed action that goes forward for approval by the Federal Highway Administration. That's done through the engineering study, which will be finalized after we get through tonight's meeting, MSFI, and then ultimately a decision by the city council. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, and he'll kind of explain the work we've been doing for the last year.
Great. Thanks, Don. So I'll go through this process, hopefully fairly quickly, make sure to just do an overview, kind of explain where we got to and why, and then open up for questions. So I'll go through this process, really focus on, the listening sessions, some of the traffic, but really the focus is to tell you what the alternatives that came out of the steering committee and what they've proposed as their preferred. So this purpose and needs statement is a very important step in this process. This is, again, as Don said, this is a requirement of the federal process where before we start to look at alternatives and evaluate them, there has to be a sort of a foundation that says, what is the community looking to get out of this project? What are the issues and what are the goals, as we move through this process? So this was developed after meeting with the steering committee. We had 2 listening sessions, one in Keene, one in Swansea, where we engaged the public, asked them some really basic questions about what are the problems that they experience on this corridor, and then also what are the opportunities for this project to achieve certain goals of them as citizens. So this is the actual purpose statement. So this is the foundation of what we're trying to achieve for the project. Highlighted a couple or underlined a couple of key elements where it is meant to create a complete street. And as you know, the city has a complete streets policy, so we want to try to impose and complete this project with that mindset. But again, the things that we heard probably most strongly were concerns about congestion, the queuing and the delay that occurs on a lot of the side streets, driveways, really the difficulty people have accessing this corridor from the businesses and the side streets along this section of Lower Winchester Street. And then obviously that has a factor of safety, that is impacting the safety of drivers as they maneuver through this corridor. And then again, just look at access, aesthetics, and those types of things. And the other important thing is there is the Ashwamp Brook Bridge. If you drive by there, you'll see that there's some temporary barriers on that bridge. This project will replace that bridge with whatever configuration comes out of this process. So that bridge will be replaced as part of this project. And then the need, this is really, what do people see out there as they're, driving through the corridor? And again, it's the volume of traffic is stated over and over again as a need, and really this accessing, whether you're on Winchester Street and you need to make a left turn onto the side streets, and more so if you're on one of those side streets and you're trying to make a left turn to access Winchester Street, just the volume of traffic makes that very difficult. And then obviously, we also heard about speed. So those are all the things that we're trying to achieve with this project. So traffic. So this is one of the first things that we did from an engineering perspective. We did conduct traffic counts out there last October. This was a pretty extensive traffic collection process. We picked up counts at 12 intersections along the corridor. This is a graphic from the firm that we hired to collect that shows all the locations where we picked up traffic. So we looked at peak hour, for those intersections. We also did full day, 24-hour collections on portions of Winchester Street. We also did one on Matthews because that was a key point of entrance to the corridor. And those counts, we then collect, we establish sort of a base of what we know as traffic out there in the peak period for the current year, which we do some massaging of those numbers to come up with a base year for this year of 2023 as what we feel is the traffic out there today. Then one of the real challenges is then to say, okay, we want this project to work and provide operations for the future. So we have to look at future growth, and that becomes a very important concept. And we work closely with the steering committee to really show them what we're finding and what the regional plans are saying is the expected growth in demand and traffic in the region on this corridor. We talked with the city and the town of Swansea to say what is their expectation of future growth within the corridor, and then we grow that traffic to what we call our design year. And that design year is typically construction year plus 20 years. So we want to make sure that this project will serve the traffic for that 20-year horizon. So our design year ends up being 2045, and all the analyses that we do are based on that future traffic scenario of 2045. And that second to last bullet I think is important, that when we got through this, we found a 20 to 30% increase in traffic on Winchester Street from today over that 20-year horizon. And the higher volumes tended to be closer to 101, and they kind of dissipate as you get away from 101. But that's a pretty significant increase in traffic, and when you're seeing those congestions today, you can see that it's going to get worse as we move into the future. So like I said, the last bullet is all the analyses that we conducted were based on the future to see how best to accommodate that future demand and traffic. So then we looked at alternatives. So the first thing that became pretty clear to us from an engineering perspective is there's sort of different segments of the project that are very unique in character, in traffic. So we actually started looking at them in these three different segments. So we have the north segment, which is from the existing 101 roundabout south to and including Criff Road. So that is what we call the north segment. The middle segment is from that segment just south of Criff, south past Bradco and past the Matthews Road intersection. So that's the middle section. And then the south section is about half of that is within Keene, and then the last half is the portion that's within Swansea. So I'm going to present each of these segments separately, show you what's out there today, what alternatives were considered, and then which of those was selected by the steering committee. So for the north segment, again, this is from Criff to 101. What's out there today is what we would call a 3-lane section. So there's a single lane in each direction, and there's a center, what we call dual-use turn lane. So that's for left-turn vehicles, entering and exiting the corridor. So there's 3 lanes out there today. So this is the segment where the most traffic growth is expected, and it's sort of past that level, that threshold that we needed to add capacity. So both of the alternatives that were evaluated added a lane in each direction on Winchester Street. So there's additional capacity, which was a major aspect of the steering committee's concern and the discussion that we had. And then we developed 2 different layouts, which have the same footprint, but operationally they're quite different. So one of them would be to retain that center turn lane. The other one would actually to put a raised median separating the 2 directions of traffic. We did look at throughout the corridor, and I'll focus on it for this section, that because it's a complete street, we are proposing to provide bike lanes in each direction. So there's 5-foot bike lanes adjacent to the travel lane and a curb in both directions. And then we are adding a sidewalk. That sidewalk is proposed to be on the west side, and that would go, would be on the west side and would run the length of the project, would include this sidewalk. So for the north segment, it's only on the west side. So then you'd have additional capacity, a bike lane on both sides, and then a sidewalk. Oops, I'm going too fast here. So for the north segment, the recommendation that came was that to use the 4-lane section with the median. What that does with a raised island or raised median in the center, you would not be able to make left turns from Winchester Street or onto Winchester Street. And that was done with the other solution, or the other recommendation, which was to put a roundabout at the intersection of Criff and Winchester, which would mean that just like other portions of Winchester Street, you'd use the roundabouts, enable you to reverse direction. There would be no left turns along this segment of Winchester Street. So when we move to the middle section currently is a 2-lane roadway, 1 lane in each direction. For this segment, we are not recommending or showing the need to add capacity. So this would remain a single lane in each direction. However, the left turning and the turning vehicles are still an issue in this segment. So there was one of the alternatives that was considered would add that center lane, that center dual-use turn lane. And then the other option was to add the median, similar to the north segment. Both of those also have the same footprint. It's just, again, operationally how you might handle the traffic. So from a plan perspective, 2 lanes in each direction, no left turns, then with a roundabout at the intersection of Matthews and Winchester Street. So then you'd have the roundabouts both at Criff and at Matthews, no left turns. The bridge, which is right in the middle there, would be replaced with that section that you see there. One of the things that really came up in the discussion was some of the issues that happened at Bradco. That Bradco There's a lot of businesses out there. When they have shift changes, that left turn of traffic coming down Bradco, trying to go northbound on Winchester Street is a significant issue. There's a lot of delays there, and there's a lot of safety concerns about how people try to get out there. So what we've done here is, there would be no left turn, and then the workers would come out of Bradco, they could make that right turn, use the roundabout reverse direction to head northbound. And we've added that extra lane there to help them do that. So there's a little bit of that short distance between what's shown as Magnolia and Bradco. There is an additional lane there that's really to address that volume of traffic that comes out of Bradco during those peak periods. Is that what you were gonna say?
Yep, that's
All right.
exactly.
So that's the recommendation for the middle segment. So when we get to the south segment, again, this is a 2-lane road. There's no curbing. They're pretty narrow lanes. It's a pretty confined area. It's also a very different context where there's, the first part of it is more residential, and the other part is, as you get into Swansea, is a little bit, starts to kind of change context pretty quickly. So we looked at two kind of very different sections for this segment, which was to just keep the two lanes in each direction, provide much more standard shoulder bike lanes, and still have the sidewalk. And then the other one, very similar section, but to add that center dual turn lane. So again, the south segment recommendation was to actually continue that third lane, allow that, and a lot of those residents there, that's the very southern end of Keene, a lot of driveways, to give those people an ability to get into a left turn pocket to access their driveways. One of the unique things about this area is that the sidewalk certainly comes down the full length all the way to the entrance to Market Basket, but we're also connecting it on the east side as well up to Lucinda. There's a lot of residences there, and those people do like to walk over to Market Basket, so there is a dual sidewalk for a portion of this area just because we saw the need. This segment also shows a roundabout at the Market Basket intersection. That was sort of a late consideration, came up from the steering committee to maybe consider that. Don went back to the state to see if they'd be comfortable with us evaluating that, and they agreed. And when we actually went back to the steering committee, they thought it was a very good addition. So it's in Swansea, but it would be a conversion of that signal to a roundabout. So when you put this all together, this is what the overall concept looks like. It's about a mile of road. You'd have 2 travel lanes in each direction between 101 and Criff. What you see in parentheses at these bullets is that was the vote at the steering committee. So
I'll chime in on that.
Okay.
So when Gene says that this is the recommended alternative, I do want to emphasize that this is what the mayor's steering committee is recommended. So I don't want you to think that this is just what the design engineers are recommending. This is what the steering committee has recommended. But it is important to note that the steering committee didn't come to a unanimous consensus on this. The steering committee, I think, had a really good cross-section representation of the folks with an interest in this project. It was largely business owners and people that work down there. And they, they had their individual concerns. So I think there was a lot of very productive, fruitful discussion. I think everybody, had a chance to air their concerns, but the committee didn't end up coming to a unanimous consensus. So in addition to the recommendations that they voted on, we're put in the slide here what that vote was, just, in the interest of transparency. Right. Obviously tonight this is a very general overview. I have encouraged the members of the steering committee to come to MSFI in a couple of weeks so that they can really more forcefully speak for their interests to the committee.
And then, and as Don said, that, you know, there were differences of opinion in certain aspects. So we sort of broke down, you know, as we started to discuss it, into these separate components, and then had them vote separately on each. So you can see that there were, you know, there was pretty much consensus, you know, from the, you know, putting that shared use center turn lane between Matthews and Market Basket, that was unanimous. The roundabouts, again, adding the 3 roundabouts, that was a 4-1 vote. But then it really sort of the northern segment was probably where there was less consensus, was that section, and it, you know, that added capacity, I think, was really the point, that some people weren't comfortable with that additional capacity, but each of those was voted on separately.
And the medians. The medians
Right.
was really.
Oh, that's true.
You know, for a business owner, that there's a perception that if your business can't get left turns in, it's harder to get to, that might affect the business.
Right.
So there's a legitimate concern there.
Right. Okay. So, lastly, we'll just talk about the steps.
So
You
I'll
wanna-
take this one, sure.
Okay.
The next step for the city is going to be at MSFI on the 27th. We'll really flesh this out in a lot more detail. Like I said, I've reached out to the steering committee members and encouraged them to come to that meeting so that they can, you know, let their concerns be heard by the full committee. Ultimately, the MSFI has to take what it hears and make a decision on what that committee will recommend to the full council. Once the full council votes on that, I think that's sometime October, November, depending on how long MSFI takes to deliberate, that will be the proposed action. At that point, Gene and his team can then finalize the engineering study report, submit that to DOT and Federal Highway. So we're expecting that sometime, you know, late December, early January, those timeframes, we'll begin really getting into the more detailed design. And that'll take a good year and a half to get through that. The wild card in that schedule right now, I will say, the project right now is scheduled for construction to start in the spring of '25. The wild card in my mind is going to be right-of-way acquisition. As you know, we've been through before. That can be very time-consuming. Because this is a state highway, DOT is actually going to be doing all of the right-of-way acquisition themselves, you know, with their right-of-way staff, which is fantastic because I don't have to do it, you don't have to do it. It's fantastic. But what it also means is that we're sacrificing an element of control. You know, we're going to lose a little bit of control over the schedule and how quickly they get through that process. So I will say right now, this is in the state's 10-year plan for construction in '25. Just knowing that we are going to be acquiring property, I wouldn't be terribly shocked if it slipped into construction in '26, right? Being realistic. But we're going to keep pushing for '25. The other thing that's not on this schedule, but I'll put out there as a next step, the 13th of September, next week, Gene's team and I will be going to the Board of Selectmen in Swansea and giving them basically the same presentation. Because it is 2 different municipalities, they're sponsoring their piece, they're going to have to go through their own process to vote on the selected proposed action within the town limits. So, you know, whether they want to include a roundabout in front of Market Basket, where they want to put their sidewalks, they'll make the decisions about what they do in their town. Yeah. And with that, I'd love to take any questions.
Any immediate questions? Yes, Councilor Ormerod?
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. Very happy to hear this. We know that it's a big problem, and it looks like it's going to address the traffic, the queuing, the left turns and the right turns out of that. That's all very good. I saw that there was bike lanes in there. I'm not sure if they were raised, and why do they have to be on both sides of the road? Can't we have protected bike lanes? Or can you talk a little bit more about your philosophy on the bike lanes?
It's gonna just show like one of the basic sections. Yeah, I mean, we're sort of looking at this to be consistent with other portions of Winchester Street. I mean, this, the keep calling it Upper Winchester Street, sort of the piece just under construction north of the roundabout has this very similar typical section where you have the median, the lanes, and a bike lane on each direction, with the idea that if you're a person who is a cyclist and you're gonna be in the roadway, so that is at the road level, that's the pavement level, you'd be adjacent to the cars, that's what's being proposed, not separated. And so you have them in both directions just so that those cyclists can be moving with traffic. And then again, with the roundabouts, we do the similar treatment that's being constructed out there today, where you see the ramps that if someone on a bike wasn't comfortable going through the roundabout, they could exit, use the roundabout, go around, and get back on to continue. This is what was proposed. Everyone, the steering committee was comfortable with it. Again, it is a narrow corridor. Having separate facilities takes up a lot more space. So we're trying to achieve the complete street with, trying to still be mindful of the impacts along the corridor.
Yeah, and we didn't touch on this, but I will point out that for most of the corridor, Gene's team has been able to fit everything that we're showing within the existing right-of-way width. There will be property impacts, particularly at the intersections, and a few odds and ends properties, but by and large, we fit it within the existing right-of-way. In order to fit in a separated, designated off-street facility, I think we probably would have greater property impacts.
All right. Counselor Giacomo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hey, stay right on this page right here. Speaking of right-of-way increases, I see a 25-foot increase on that one. I saw the center and south segments were basically kept with the 49-foot 5, but this one we're going from 49.5 to 74.5. Do we know which direction, east or west, that extra 25 feet is being taken from? Or I could swear that the road is wider at this part than it is in the bottom. Is that a typo, or I have a couple other questions after that.
Well, we put the term in there that it's the layout. There's the section, in this particular section, the property that the city owns is actually wider. It's not considered part of the town layout right now, but there's property that's on the east side. And if I go to the next slide, so it's that east side, you can almost, it's
Yeah, I can
hard
see
to
the
tell
dashed
here.
line there.
Yeah, that there's a strip of land there that is owned by the city. It's part of, the right of way, but it's not part of the current layout of the road.
Great, that
Right.
answers that one. Do you mind if I continue then? The next two questions, actually, both regarding the Magnolia Way and Matthews Road intersection. That roundabout, the angle of attack northbound is pretty funky on that. Is that to avoid Magnolia Way? And then that ties into, how is this going to impact the stuff we just voted on with regards to the Magnolia Way right-of-way stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I know this graphic is hard to see, but yeah, I mean, that roundabout was positioned to try to avoid some of the development there. This is, the aerial that's on here is a little bit dated, so that I know that there's been some future development there. So we did, that circle has been placed carefully to try to minimize the impacts. We still have geometric, demands that we have to accommodate for trucks and so forth. It's probably that acute angle that's on the corner of Winchester and Matthews is the most difficult. That corner is gonna have some restrictions, a big delivery truck or a big 18-wheeler is not gonna be able to make that right turn from northbound Winchester onto Matthews. So there are gonna be some restrictions, but that's not a movement trucks should be making anyway, and they don't do it today.
We actually have a very similar situation to that on the current project. For trucks coming out of Pearl Street and heading south on Winchester, that sharp angle, a large tractor trailer can't make it. So that the way they could actually sort of maneuver through there would be to actually go all the way around the circle.
All right, and then finally, if we do have medians, do the medians have trees in them?
I think that would be
Yes.
the intent.
Thank you.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you, Counsel Giacomo. You asked most of my questions, so thank you. I really like this plan. I know there's some car dealerships that are going to be happy. When you, at the Best Western Hotel, when you check out in the morning, the front desk always advises you to make a right turn and pull into one of the car dealerships on the left to turn around and come back and go up towards Keene. So they're going to be very happy with that. And I'm sure that's a lot of businesses along that way that do that. One question I have is with the Swansea Planning Board, back when the supermarket, Market Basket was a beautiful farm and was, the developer came before the planning board, we had agents from Keene go there to ask for some of these improvements that you're doing in that area. And it wasn't the developer who was opposed to it, it was the actual Swansea Planning Board who was opposed to it. So I hope we kind of, maybe now that they see what happened, their eyes are gonna open a little.
So, you know, I can't speak for the planning board or Board of Selectmen in Swansea. We've been working with the town administrator on this project, and they did have representatives on our steering committee. The representatives and the city administrator, town administrator, believe, you know, they agree that this is a good improvement. Ultimately, it'll be up to the Board of Selectmen whether they want to do this or not. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Madison?
Thank you. I just have a question about the Route 10 bridge. If we're looking at ideally a 2025 start, but more realistically, potentially something further down the road, how much further can the bridge on Route 10 be moved up? Because I'm very concerned about the condition of that bridge, and I use the term bridge very lightly.
I share your very concern. Do you want to take that one? We all have concerns about the condition of that bridge. I think, you know, we continue to monitor it. It is one of the states red listed, so it's getting inspected by DOT annually. Our crews check it twice a year. You know, they're not bridge engineers, but if they see something while they're climbing around on it, they're going to bring it up to our attention. I think if something happens between now and then, we'll end up having to do some sort of temporary repairs or stabilization in order to get us to the point where we can have a reconstruction.
Anyone else? You both went, didn't you? Counselor Greenwald?
Couple of thoughts as this issue is heading towards MSFI. I am concerned about the no left turns, and I'd like to hear from the property owners what their thoughts are. Maybe they could be brought around. I don't want to have it at the last moment, oh my God, what's going on here? Because obviously, if there is a roundabout where you can make the left turn, essentially, that's a good solution. And also going into MSFI, what are some of the considered options that were not accepted, just so we're not just all in favor or all opposed? See if we have any input on some of the specific issues. Perhaps there aren't any, but.
Yeah, no, the consultants have a much more detailed version of this presentation that we'll be discussing at MSFI. We will get into the different alternatives that were considered and discussed and ultimately not moved forward by the steering committee.
Good.
But yeah, we can talk quite a bit more about that.
Thank you.
Counselor Ormerod?
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. Just thinking on the bike lanes, I understand this is really well thought out. And at first I thought, why can't we put both bike lanes on one side? But then I remembered you got these rotaries, and you got to send the bikes through the rotaries. So it is better to have one on each side. I know people are going to ask me about it as well, too. So are we going to have painted lines in the rotary for the bike lane? Is that what we're gonna do, or how do you handle the bikes and the rotary?
So you'll see that here pretty soon, once they finish the construction on Upper Winchester Street. It's going to be the same situation where there's no like markings or striping that's going to be placed in the roundabout. If you're a cyclist and you enter or you approach the roundabout, if you're someone who's comfortable, you'll enter the flow of traffic and ride the roundabout and go around the circle like the cars will. And they can do that because the speeds in that roundabout are going to be 18, 20 miles an hour. So, someone who can ride a bike can go through that. But there'll be signs that'll say, hey, if you're not comfortable, then you'll have a ramp. And you'll be able to and actually ride around the roundabout. Because you will see, I'm not sure that you've noticed that on the roundabouts that were just constructed, that the sidewalk that's around the roundabout is actually wider than the standard sidewalk because it's actually a dual-use path. So as a cyclist, you will be allowed legally to ride on that path around the roundabout, and then there'll be a ramp that you could go back and ride along the roadway. So sidewalks, again, if you're a normal sidewalk, you're not allowed to ride on a sidewalk, but they are wider and they'll be dual-use paths.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question about the size of the roundabouts that are being proposed. Are they intended to be the same size as the ones we just put in on Upper Winchester Street? Will they be any smaller than that?
Very similar.
Very
So
similar.
These are what we would call hybrids, so there's some elements that are 2 lanes, some that are single lanes, very, very similar to the 2 that are under construction.
But I could say to my truck drivers, if you can get around that
Yes.
roundabout up there and do a U-turn, then it'll be pretty much the same thing.
Absolutely, and these have been checked. We use our programs to ensure that those large trucks, because this is a state route, and unlike Upper Winchester Street, this is a state highway.
Right.
So we have to prove to the state that those trucks can make those maneuvers.
Okay. Anyone else right now? We'll have a more robust discussion at MSFI, and I want to highlight what Councilor Greenwald said. We need to do a good job of getting people out to this meeting at MSFI, because this is going to be a big change for this area, and we don't want anyone being caught off guard. All right. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to confirmations, number 1.
This evening, we have before you several members of the Heritage Commission that are slated for confirmation. They include a Julie Emmerith, who would have a term to expire December 31, 2026, and Susan DeGidio and Rose Carey are long-term members of the Heritage Commission, and they are asking to shift down to alternate membership to allow some new members to join the commission. And so those terms will also be December 31, 2026, and both being alternates.
I'm looking at Councilor Powers for motion. Councilor Bosley for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move to confirm the nominations as presented.
Second.
And we have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Ormerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Nominations, number 2.
The mayor is nominating several members to the Library Board of Trustees. The first two are Yves Gaduki and Ritu Batuka, and they were actually errors in their terms when they were confirmed several years ago. So we are extending their terms so that there can sort of be an equal staggering of terms going forward. So both of those terms would be June 30, 2024. And joining the library board would be Dr. Donald Caruso with a June 30, 2026, and a Catherine Baer, again, June 30, 2026.
And those will be tabled until the next regular meeting. Communications, number 1.
We have a resignation from Elizabeth Campbell. She's been serving on the Energy and Climate Committee since February 2022, and she is moving out of state and has submitted her resignation.
Council Powers for a motion, Council Mosley for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to accept the resignation with regret and appreciation for the service she's given to the city.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Councilor Mosley. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Lake?
Yes.
Counsel Remy?
Yes.
Counsel Giacomo?
Yes.
Counsel Filio?
Yes.
Counsel Williams?
Yes.
Counsel Jones?
Yes.
Counsel Madison?
Yes.
Counsel Ormerod?
Yes.
Counsel Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counsel Workman?
Yes.
Counsel Greenwald?
Yes.
Counsel Mosley?
Yes.
Counsel Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 2.
This is a communication from Ryan Grandmont. He's a recent hawker and peddler that's been licensed for space on Railroad Square. Due to the configuration of his setup, he was requested to relocate to a vending, sort of a vending, loading zone that's on Railroad Street. And since he relocated, he has seen a decline in his business, and he believes that having a sandwich board on the city sidewalk would assist in drawing more customers to him.
And we will refer this to the Planning Licenses and Development Committee, number 3.
This is a communication from Roger Weinreich, Good Fortune. He's looking to utilize city property in front of his business to have a block party, and this would be in conjunction with the Pumpkin Festival.
And this will be referred to the Planning Licenses and Development Committee, number 4.
This is a communication from a Jared Goodell, who recently opened a new business, I believe on Emerald Street, and he received a charge, $70 charge from the fire department that he believes is a charge for an assembly permit, and Mr. Goodell believes that that's in violation of a statute.
And this will be referred to the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee, number 5.
This is actually a petition that is submitted on under the name of Rebecca Lancaster. It's reflecting a urgent appeal for the installation of a sidewalk on Arch Street between Hurricane Road and Felt Road.
And this will be referred to the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee, number 6.
Communication from Councilor Lake. He's asking for an update on the sidewalk asset management program.
And this will also be referred to the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee. The next 7 through 16 are all related to the withdrawn application, and so we're just going to accept those as informational. Number 1, committee reports.
We have a Municipal Services, Facility, and Infrastructure Committee report relative to an uncollectible sewer and water bill. On a vote of 4 to 1, the Municipal Services, Facility, and Infrastructure Committee recommends the City Council forgive the sewer water bill for 64 Valley Street in the amount of $787.86 as being uncollectible.
Council Greenwald for a motion, Council Filio for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Greenwald, seconded by Council Filio. Council Greenwald.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very unusual situation. Our Public Works Director, Court Blumquist, came to us with this information. 64 Valley Street was sold in a private sale. No real estate agents were involved. Just want to assure everyone of this. Normally, when a property transfers at the closing, all these bills are paid: the water bill, fuel, and the agents and the attorney take care of it. Well, somehow it didn't happen in this case. The city, according to our background notes, gave the requested information to the attorney, but it just didn't happen. It didn't happen at the closing. The buyer received a bill saying that there was an outstanding water bill. He objected. The city went back to the seller, who did not respond and is now out of state. The attorney was even less interested, apparently, in solving the matter. So what this comes down to is we can chase this, we could take it to small claims court, we can knock our heads against the wall, basically. But with an out-of-state party with small claims action, there really is minimal, if any, way of collecting. But the better news is, with the thousands of bills that are sent out, all the homeowners eventually catch up and pay the bill. the property transfers, the bills get paid. So I'm not throwing blame on the city. Maybe I'll throw it on the attorney, but, that's not going to make anyone feel any better. We're not going to get the $700. But ultimately, it's an unfortunate situation. We just have got to, it's a business decision. We can chase this, collection agencies, this or that, spend $1,000 to collect $700. It's not a good decision. So the MSFI committee discussed it. It was not unanimous. I mean, the dissenting counselors had very good arguments that people should pay their bills, they shouldn't get away with this stuff. In this case, it is what it is. We need to clear the books and just, the phrase is to forgive. It's an old phrase, but it's basically, we lose.
All right, any discussion? Counselor Ormerod.
Thank you, Mayor Hensel. On this one, if we do forgive it, are we gonna send that notice of forgiveness to that out-of-state person so that they know what we've done for them? Just wanna know what the procedure is.
I wouldn't waste the stamp.
Probably not. I think it just gets cleared off our books. All right, anybody else? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
No.
Counselor Ormerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Mosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
All right, so I've got
12? 12 to
12
1.
in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. Number 2.
Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee report, this one dealing with expanded locker rooms for Keene State College, and this would be at Keene Ice. On a vote of 5-0, the Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee recommends that the manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate an agreement with Keene Ice and Keene State College relative to the creation of expanded locker rooms at Keene Ice and report back to the MSFI committee.
I'm looking for a motion from Counselor Greenwald, second by Counselor Filio, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Greenwald, seconded by Counselor Filio. Counselor Greenwald.
Thank you, Your Honor. Keene Ice is located on Marlborough Street, as I hope you all know. And I would say that this facility is probably one of the proudest accomplishments of my time on city council. Kids are there of all ages, and now their parents are there, and it's great. So Keene State is capitalizing on this idea as part of their goal to increase their enrollment. They will have varsity college hockey. And to make this possible, they are facilitating new locker rooms according to the, Randy, could you give me the initial? Yeah, whatever he just said, NAA, yeah, college standards. $1 million investment in our property is coming forward. So this is really good news. So what we are encouraging is that the manager negotiate with the college for this construction. The committee made it very, very clear, or at least I certainly did, and there were also other speakers, this is a public facility. The high school, the junior high school, the little kids of all ages use this facility. And I was concerned, and I received really good reassurance from Natalie Howder, the Keene State Vice President for Finance and Administration, that the local kids won't get pushed to 2 o'clock ice time, 2 o'clock in the morning ice time. That actually this will all work well together, that the college will be there when the public school kids are in public school, and it'll all be great. This also helps to balance the books for the ice arena, because it creates more paying ice time for the ice arena. You may have noticed that there has been no request come to us that they need any kind of subsidy or there's any financial problems. It's tight. I know it's tight. I have a lot of family that skates, and keeping it filled and scheduling the ice time is a real challenge. So this is all good news. I'm going on too long, but we need to go visit the ice arena. And for those of you, and I think a lot of you do actually go to the hockey games and the figure skating and the women's hockey and all the rest, it's a great facility, and this is going to make it greater. So MSFI is encouraging the manager to go forth and negotiate, going to bring back the agreement to us. It's not negotiate and execute. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Filio.
Just to add to that, the investment that Keene State is going to be making in Keene Ice is well over $1 million. So the investment is very significant.
Great. Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to also mention what else came up at MSFI was this is an economic development tool. This is going to help local hotels, shops, restaurants. These teams will be coming to play, will be coming from all over New England to come play, and it's a good thing for downtown and the surrounding area.
Thank you. Councilor Giacomo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Question for, I guess, for MSFI, because I wasn't at the meeting where this was discussed, but is, with Keene State bringing on sounds like a women's varsity program next year, I believe, is that being included with all of this, with the renovations? Renovations are for both men's and women's locker rooms, and there's all, I just wasn't sure. I want to make sure that, you know, they're investing in the team that they've got right now, just making sure that we're investing in both teams when that happens. So I wasn't sure if you guys were part of that, that was part of your conversations or not.
It's a good question, but
I don't know what federal law there is about equal opportunity, but I'm sure they're going to have to comply with it.
something to keep an eye on when it comes back, and maybe when we get them in front of us again. All right. Anyone else? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
And Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
And Counselor Omorad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Number 3.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report, this one dealing with the acceptance of a highway safety grant. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the grant from the New Hampshire Highway Safety Agency to fund Highway Safety Grant Keene.
I'm looking for a motion from Councilor Powers, second by Councilor Remy, if he's available to do that.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Remy. Councilor Powers.
This is an annual grant to the city of Keene in the amount of $14,500. The purpose of this grant is to add different periods of time, basically revolved around traffic enforcement. They look at the statistics and the survey of what's going on. So it's traffic enforcement, DWI, bicycle and pedestrian. They're dedicated projects basically during peak times, and of course, it's in addition to the zone patrols. $14,500, it's good for the year, and they pretty much have it scheduled out throughout the entire year. Recommended the city manager be authorized to accept and expend those funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omorad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 4.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to acceptance of a grant, this one from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the manager be authorized to do all things necessary to execute a $12,000 grant award from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources Certified Local Government Grant Program for the Historic District Commission to work with a qualified consultant in the historical and architectural inventory of the properties located within the extension of the downtown historic district that occurred in 2012.
Thank you. Councilor Powers for a motion. Councilor Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a $12,000 grant. Ask for that the city manager be authorized to accept and expend. And this is for really the review of 21 acres that's been added to the downtown historic district. Of those properties, 19 different properties added to the district. And what it's going to do is provide us some great documentation to the architectural qualifications and qualities of those properties. So this is a great grant, because if we hadn't had the grant and be able to get the specialist, we'd be for a long time here trying to pull that together ourselves with everything else we do. So recommended that the city council authorize the manager to accept and expend. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omeriad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 5.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report, this one dealing with an acceptance of a grant for juvenile court diversion. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend funds provided by the New Hampshire Juvenile Court Diversion Network for Youth Services Program.
I'm looking for a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Council Remy, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers.
Once again, we're asking the city council to authorize the manager to accept and expend the funds that have been provided. In this case, it's from the New Hampshire Juvenile Court Division Network, and it's for our youth services program. It's to run the fiscal year, began in July 1st, on through June 30th. $5,586, and that's based upon the number of cases that the agency has worked with over the past year, so it's really targeted based on what's necessary. And what it does is it provides them the ability to use specialists and use the time to really screen substance abuse issues, mental health issues, as they work with children who have been referred to this program versus going through the court system. So worthwhile program. Urge you to accept this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omeriad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 6.
This is an informational report from the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee dealing with a request to amend our rules of order to deal with workshops.
And this will be filed as information. Number 7.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to a request for a parking voucher system for attendees of a International Motorcycle Club event that's scheduled in Keene, hopefully coming to Keene in 2024. And the recommendation is, on a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to work with Parking Services to explore potential options for a voucher system.
And I'm looking at Council Powers for a motion. Council Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to recommend the, carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
And we have a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers.
Which is to recommend that the city manager be authorized to work with Parking Services in this group to work through this program. And one correction, I missed it today when I was reading, but it's Bob Trudell, not Goodell,
Thank you.
who came to us, long time resident of the area, involved in many things that's for the good of the community. Essentially, these folks are coming to town, they come to New Hampshire once a year in different places to get everybody together, show off their bikes, and use hotels, restaurants, and everything. So in various places where parking is an issue, they've worked out various events and ways to take care of the parking issues, because some of what they're gonna do is on Saturday. They haven't put it all together, but this is the basic concept, so if we authorize the manager to work with them, and certainly Med will work with them to come up with a plan, and then the plan will come back to us for the final analysis if it involves money. But it's just another great thing when people come to this town, 400 bikes, at least one person per bike. It's a lot of folks to come to stay in town, eat in town, and shop in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerion?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Number 8.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to a request to waive purchasing requirements. This is for pay stations. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the City Council waive the purchasing requirements of the City Code of Ordinances, Section 2-1332, for the sole source purchase of 15 pay stations for $115,725, which includes the stations, the hardware, the installation, the communication, and warranty fees for the pay station supplier, Flowbird.
Looking for a motion from Counselor Powers, second by Counselor Remy, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. This particular expenditure is from the parking fund, part of the parking program. The money for the expenditure of $115,725 is the CIP element for parking fund this time around. The reason for the waiver is these particular pay stations are already supplied to us and are put up in various places in the city. They're proven to be the best piece of equipment and that type of work that we've had. So as we begin to extend to meet the needs of our strategic plans for the city parking fund, this is what the group has come up with. We want to get 15 more pay stations. So the amount of money is in the parking fund through CIP. The maintenance of the second and third year is in the budget for the parking fund. There was a question as to, is this standardizing, this is the only one we're gonna buy? This is the one that seems to work the best for our community. But over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, the whole horizon of how parking is handled will change so much that we don't wanna say, oh, this is the only one we're gonna use, and this way, this is gonna work best for us. So it's waiving the standard, but it's not saying the standard is gonna be, this is the only one we'll ever buy. Normally, it would go out to bid, but when we find a product that works well for us, and it's at the right price, and it makes sure that it's not a high-maintenance item, that's what's recommended to us, and that's for us to decide. Finance Committee recommended and voted unanimously to recommend that this be authorized. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes. Counselor Omerion.
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. I'm assuming and I'm hoping that this is, through the chair, if this is compatible with the software, the parking software we already use. And I imagine, I'm hoping that that's one of the reasons why, because it's compatible with the Park Mobile. So I'm asking for confirmation.
It is.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none. Are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerion?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yeah.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 9.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report, this one dealing with a change order for the skate park construction. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a change order with Spawn Ranch, Inc. for design build services required for the creation of a new skate park for an amount not to exceed $300,000, with funding to come from Project Cost Center 65J0008A-300-054410.
Looking at Counselor Powers for a motion. Counselor Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Powers, seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is bringing a great project to a head. It's going to move forward now. We purchased that property next to the new park, the new Russell Park. And there's been several steps along the way to make this work, and some of the funding that was in the regular budget has had to be used to take down that particular building. But you will recall that a number of years ago, a group of folks in the community came to us and asked if we could do something for a new skate park, and they were going to do some fundraising. And they were able to go out and raise $217,000 towards this project. There's $25,000 in the CIP towards this project. But as time has gone on, the cost of doing it and the site and taking down that building has made it a little more expensive. So the staff has selected Spawn Ranch Incorporated to continue working with us and to design build this particular project for a contract of not more than $300,000. So all these funds combined with a Land Water Conservation Fund grant of $225,000 will be enough money to make it work and have it moving forward. There's probably a small amount that'll be left over based on the cost today, but we know what it's like when you get to the end. So there's an ample amount of money in this, in the project cost center and the fundraising to do this. So recommend that the manager be authorized to sign that contract.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yeah.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Number 10.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to the Transportation Heritage Trail Project. This is a consultant selection for Phase 1. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute an engineering and technical services agreement with Stantec Consulting Services for the Transportation Heritage Trail Project Phase 1 for an amount not to exceed $385,000.
Council Powers for motion. Council Remy for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Thank you. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. 5,000 feet of trailhead improvements. It's another great program. Some funding has come forward, TAP grant, congressional directed funding, some fundraising, Pathways for Keene. Monadnock Conservancy has donated money. So it's a great project, and it's a continuation of the many trails that have been built to date. It's going to take, the 5,000 feet is from the intersection on Eastern Avenue to Route 101. Go down through that area. And when that other bridge comes across the state, from the state of New Hampshire that's donated it to us, we get it put up. The ultimate goal here is to connect Keene and Swansea through the rail trail system, Smooth Avenue. And this will be one of the first steps on that particular leg that's going south. So I recommend that the manager be authorized to negotiate and execute this engineering contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Remy? Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yep.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Number 11.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yep,
Did we miss the skateboard? Skate park?
No.
that was.
Okay.
No.
2 ago, on number 9.
We voted.
Yeah, thought so, but, Amran had a question about it, so.
Oh.
No, we're good.
Okay. All right, number 11, and we're going to take both motions together for this
We
one.
have a Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to the sewer force main inspection project. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a project agreement with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the sewer force main evaluation project. And further, that the committee recommends that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Wright Pierce for the sewer force main pipe evaluation project in an amount not to exceed $450,000.
And I'll take a motion from Counselor Powers and a second by Counselor Bosley, if she would.
Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Bosley. Counselor Powers.
So both of these actions have to do with our sewer force main, which you've heard quite a bit about in the last couple of months. Thing's been down there for almost 30 years. A large diameter pipe that runs from the pump station towards the edge of the city, Lower Main Street, all the way over to the treatment plant. And it's had some issues where it was leaking. So we got it repaired temporarily and working towards a long-term solution. And it's going to require some serious engineering and work, which both of these actions will do, working along with the EPA to ensure that we meet the standards. At the same time, in the back of everybody's mind is, should we be looking at replacement, extension, or an additional pipe? So all of these concerns are going to be part of the work of this 2-mile force main. So to get it started, we need to have the authorization for the manager to sign this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omeron?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that's unanimous. City manager.
Good evening. Just a couple items for you this evening. First is an event to put on your calendar. It's a pleasure to announce that the Patricia Russell Park ribbon cutting has been scheduled to occur on Friday, September 22nd at 11. And I hope that all of the members of the City Council and the community can join us in this wonderful celebration. This has been a project that's been going on. It's, you know, the idea began more than 10 years ago, and it's really, really exciting to see it coming to a head. In addition to the celebration of the ribbon cutting in the morning, the Parks and Rec Department is also planning an afternoon event for, I think it's really aimed at the youth in the community. They're going to be doing a scavenger hunt that afternoon. So if you have youth, that might be also something to put on your radar. Watch for announcements from the department and additional details if you're interested. The second item I have tonight, I'm very pleased to share with the council and the community that we have promoted Jason Martin, captain at the fire department, to the position of deputy fire chief, effective September 11th, 2023. Jason is a longtime employee of the department with 25 years of service to our community. We found Councilor Powers' fingerprints on his original appointment memo today. He was initially hired in 1998, January of 1998, as a firefighter EMT. He was assigned to B shift at that time. He's probably been on all of them since. During his tenure, he has held progressively responsible positions at the department, promoted to lieutenant in 2006. He attained his paramedic credentialing after that promotion, and he has served as an operations captain since 2014. So I'd ask you all to join me in congratulating Jason, and if you do see him, know his hard work and service to the community. He's worked hard for it, and his family has supported him. So please, very pleased to announce that appointment.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much. That brings us to City Officer and Department Reports, number 1.
This is a memorandum relative to the charter amendment process that would amend both Section 11 and 14 of the municipal city charter to require municipal primaries. As required by state statute, that we did submit to the state the proposed wording. 3 state agencies sort of review that charter language, and we received notice from the Attorney General's office on behalf of the Department of Revenue Administration and the Secretary of State's office that they have no problem with our proposed resolution. So with a motion that would direct me to place the question on the ballot, this will be on the November 7th general election ballot to be voted on by the voters.
All right, thank you, and I'd recognize Counselor Powers, who also served as the chair for the ad hoc committee that reviewed the charter amendment, to give us a motion, and a second by Counselor Bosley, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move to recommend that the city council direct the city clerk to include a ballot question on the November 7th, 2023 municipal general ballot that would amend Section 11 of the Keene City Charter to provide for a biennial primary for only the offices of mayor, ward councilor, and at-large councilor, with all other offices to be elected at the municipal general election, and to amend Section 14 to conform with the proposed revision to Section 11.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Bosley. Is there any discussion? Yes, Counselor Jones?
Thank you. Just a quick question. If this passes the ballot in 2023, it would take place in 2025, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. It would apply to the 2025 election. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Number 2.
This is a memorandum from the city engineer. It's on behalf of the ad hoc Lower Winchester Street Project Steering Committee, and it's recommending that the presentation that you heard this evening be referred to the MSI committee for their further consideration and recommendation.
This will be referred to the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee, which brings us to Board and Commission reports. Number 1.
This is a report on behalf of the Joint Planning Board, Planning Licenses and Development Committee. They had the public workshop on ordinance O 2023-13, which is a zoning map change for Ashwillet Street. And the planning board finds that the ordinance is consistent with the city's comprehensive master plan, and the Planning Licenses and Development Committee is recommending that the mayor set a public hearing on the ordinance.
So we'll file a memorandum, refer the ordinance to the Planning Licenses and Development Committee, and I will set the public hearing for Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Ordinances for a first reading, number 1.
And we have a memorandum from the Human Resources Director, and it is introducing an ordinance O 2023-14, an ordinance relating to performance bonuses and class allocations.
And this will be referred to the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee. Ordinances for second reading, we don't have any. Resolutions, number 1.
This is a Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee report. It's relative to both the resolutions relating to the acceptance of deed and return of layout for Brookford Lane, but it also includes motions relative to various communications that were received, as well as actions on several waivers that the petitioner requested.
All right, so Council Roberts and Chadbourne were not at the site visit, so they can't vote on this. And there are waivers and 2 resolutions, and they'll need individual votes on each one of those. In this instance, a motion to carry out the intent won't work for us. I also understand that the MSFI committee failed to agree on an action for the 4th waiver, and so I'm going to ask Councilor Greenwald to offer a motion tonight. And I'll start by accepting the communications and the report on behalf of the planning board as informational. regarding the first waiver on sidewalks. Counselor Greenwald for a motion, please. Counselor Filio for a second.
Okay, everyone stick with me. There's a number of motions coming, a little confusing. I mean, I spent some time with staff. What we're doing is the process for the creation of a new public street, 850 linear feet of road, 1,350 feet of sewer. As the mayor said, the planning board reviewed the application and approved the subdivision. We had a site visit, we had a public hearing, and the MSFI committee reviewed the information and the communications from two residents that had concerns about Whitcomb's Mill Road and the Route 9 intersection, which I believe city staff will be working with the state. So what needs to go on now is there's a number of waivers that were requested by the petitioner, Mr. Norm Henry, who has been working on this project, I believe, since 1990. So we're getting some new housing, but it is a process, and I hope everyone understands this. So therefore, the first waiver that is requested is regarding sidewalks. Normally, city code requires sidewalks for any new construction. What has been agreed to with city staff is that it not be a paved sidewalk, but there will be a gravel or wood chips or something walking area. A sidewalk going nowhere is really ridiculous, and a nuisance for the city to try to plow. So city staff agreed with this waiver, but we still have to go through it. So therefore, the motion is to recommend the approval of the requested waiver of section 22.3.7A, which states sidewalks shall be required on at least one side of any proposed street in any residential zoning district. So MSFI committee agreed with this, as did city staff, and a roll call will confirm.
So we've got a motion from Counselor Greenwald. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Filio. Any discussion on that first waiver request? Yes. Counselor
Just to
Williams.
clarify, the sidewalk replacement is actually, it's a path from the street to the rail trail.
Yes.
And that's what's gonna be gravel or something like that. But it's not gonna be along the side of the street.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this first waiver request? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omar?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
And Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Counselor Greenwald for a
Thank
second
you.
motion, please.
Okay, and now the next waiver that was requested is regarding the section dealing with streetlights. The committee discussion on this was, it's a short street, it's basically very rural. Part of the allure of living in a rural area is the dark skies, and there's not an awful lot of traffic, and actually putting up streetlights really negatively impacts the ambience of the area. So what was discussed finally came down to what is really needed is a street light at the intersection of the new road and Whitcomb's Mill Road. And thus, therefore, I would move to recommend the approval of the requested waiver to section 22.3.7.b, except for the placement of a street light at the intersection.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Greenwald, seconded by Counselor Filio. Any discussion on the second waiver request? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
And Counselor Remy? And Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
And Counselor Filio?
Yes.
And Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omar?
Yes.
And Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Counselor Greenwald.
Okay. Now, the next waiver, sounds like the petitioner is asking a lot, but bear in mind, this is new housing in a totally new development area. This waiver was regarding the underground street lighting feed for telephone, electric, and cable TV. Our code says that if you're putting up street lighting, you need to have underground wiring for all the rest, the telephone, electric, and cable TV. it's a big expense. And after some discussion, the committee, kind of like the underground, but also realizing that the more expense that you put on the builder, the higher the price of the housing goes. And I thought the dichotomy, is that the word? Of requiring underground street lighting feed for solar street lighting, I think we need to look at our code a little for that. So therefore, I move to recommend the approval of the requested waiver when underground street light feed is required. Telephone, electric, and cable TV shall also be located underground. Section 22.3.7D.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Greenwald, seconded by Counselor Filio. Any discussion on the third waiver request? Yes, Counselor Williams.
Yeah, as Counselor Greenwald mentioned, this is a situation where the code is a little, well, I would say it's broken, because it requires undergrounding of utilities when there's, under the condition that there's a street light, but we've recently gone to solar-powered streetlights. So essentially, if we're gonna have solar-powered streetlights in the future, this requirement is gonna be very difficult to enforce. I do think it's a good requirement, because, if utilities aren't undergrounded at the beginning, they're never gonna get undergrounded. Ultimately, in the long run, this street could be there for 200 years and be replaced over and over again. That's an expense that gets passed on to the whole rest of the public. It really would be a nicer neighborhood with the underground utilities. So I would like to have the option to be able to require undergrounding utilities. I think, based on our current code, it's a little weird. So I would just ask that city staff perhaps take a look at this issue and come to us with some recommendations.
Thank you. Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I speak, first of all, was the recommendation for the waiver or
From city staff?
from the committee?
This one is for the waiver, yeah.
Yes. Approval.
Approving the waiver.
Approve the waiver, which means you don't
Giving
want it
them an
underground.
exemption from having to put them underground.
Okay. Now, just so you know, it's a somewhat antiquated ordinance that we're working with here. Out near where I live, Summit Ridge Road, Newberry Lane, Summit Road, Stonehouse Lane, they all have underground wiring. Stonehouse Lane does have lights. They came about 16 years after the underground wiring when someone requested. Most of those streets don't have any street lighting at all, and they all have underground wiring. Being up in the sky, I think that kind of uglifies a neighborhood. I always wished my neighborhoods, when I lived on Paco Avenue, had underground wiring. As far as the cost, it's a lot cheaper to put it underground. We're trenching anyway. They've got to run the water lines. There's going to be wells there. We got to connect to the sewer. There's no road there. The cost is going to be on the suppliers, Fidium and the cable company, and they're all paying for that to go underground. And it actually costs them more to put it up because they would need to, what they usually do during construction is they get a third party with a bucket truck and they need two people who are certified lift people to be there at all times when that truck is in service. It costs a couple $1,000s a day to have that. Well, in other words, you can have laborers just stringing it underground and technicians making the connections. So it's a lot cheaper and a lot nicer to go with the underground. So I would be voting against the recommendation of the committee.
Well, I think the petitioner stated the opposite. One of the reasons they're requesting this waiver is because of the cost. And so they were saying that it was more than double, I think, the cost to put it underground.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct since we're trenching anyway. I mean, it's not like we're taking a road that exists already and putting something underground. There's nothing there now. They have to put water lines in for the wells, they have to put the sewer lines in. They're gonna be trenching all over. And as I said, the telecommunications part of it is gonna all be paid for by those suppliers. They pay for that, not the people, not the developer.
Yeah. Councilor Greenwald.
Sorry, Council Jones, I beg to differ. Eversource, Public Service, what have you, charge the homeowner, in this case would be the builder developer, for the underground. If it's above ground, it is way cheaper, very much cheaper, and perhaps, obviously, there's no one here to really give a true answer to this. I just have to depend on what was stated at the hearing. It is way more expensive. It's not about the cable TV and the telephone, it's the electric.
All right. Councilor Ormerod, then Councilor Bosley.
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. I agree with Councilor Jones's intent here. What we're wanting to do is consider the vision of all new building, and one of the things that is really going to be helpful on the beautification and the lack of disruption is putting all the utilities underground. I did hear the reason for this was the lack of a transformer, that it's going to be on back order. But also, I'm not going to support, and I can't support this ordinance because I think we should be putting everything underground. And I know there's some cost to it, but I believe it's really the right thing for our environment and for the ambience.
Councilor Filio.
Well, I wish everybody had been at the MSFI committee because a lot of the comments being made tonight are inaccurate. The developer indicated with the cost of conduit and the cost of, the increased cost of supplies, they'll significantly be more expensive. And this council, as we keep talking about affordable housing, well, once again, we're taking another issue and it's gonna be expensive anyhow, but we're trying to save the developer money, which in the end is gonna save the homeowner money. The developer did state at the MSFI committee meeting that the underground is significantly more expensive. It is not the other way around, it was significant. Going into the meeting, I was like, I could go either way on that, but when they showed how much more expensive it is to go underground, it made no sense. We need housing, once again, affordable housing, I guess it depends what you call affordable, but if we keep raising the cost of developers, we will not have any new housing in this city. That is why that I agree with Councilor Greenwald to go with the variance in the agreement here.
Councilor Bosley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sort of torn about this because obviously I want to see this housing happen and I want to see this development happen. I'm excited that we've been making changes to our land development code and we're starting to see some of those changes pay off. But these are not affordable houses. These are $500,000 homes. And I can tell you that I live in a wooded area, and every time it snows, my kids end up staying at someone's house who has underground electricity because we don't have electricity, and that happens for days. It doesn't come back on in a couple of hours. It's 2 or 3 days later, and they get tired of boiling snow and flushing our toilet and not being able to have access to like electricity to charge their appliances. So I feel like unless in this environment, unless those utilities go underground, the homeowners are gonna be strapped with the responsibility of probably having generators and dealing with those issues long-term. So I think there's a lot of waivers here that I'm gonna agree with this evening, and this is probably not one of them.
All right. Councilor Giacomo.
Thank you, Ronald. And thank you all for giving me time to Google it. Yeah, basically everything I've got for estimates here range from 2 to 5 times more expensive underground. And while I appreciate what Councilor Bosley's saying, as we were without power 4 days, I think, this past winter, I don't think that 800, 700 feet of road is likely where it's going to be. It's overhead power lines down Whitcomb's Mill, and then it has to go down Arch Street, or it has to go down one of the other corridors. The chance that that little section there is where it's going to fall down, and we're going to somehow save them from power outage. I don't know. I understand it is possible. It's not an impossibility. That could happen. But with the cost being significantly more expensive, I lean towards that. However, what I'm seeing here for 500 feet, averaging 12,500 or so versus 7,500 is the estimate that I've seen. So we're talking $5,000 among 11 houses for 500 feet. So even if it's 1,000 feet, you know, we're talking maybe 10K split amongst 11 houses. I was fully in support of giving the waiver on this one until I did the math for actually how long this has to go. It's just not that far. That's where I'm coming from on this. So.
It can be up to $100 a linear foot to put conduit in the ground. I recently just did that estimate, if that helps the council at all. And I think I remember the developer saying this was gonna be like a $50,000 expense, something like that. But I don't think it's up to us to debate the cost of it, but, yeah, Councilor Powers.
I think you're right, sir, that probably not us to debate the cost. However, anybody can throw out figures and time, but the reality is, it's only 700 feet. And we're working hard to find housing, no matter what it is, for folks. We're gonna require the developer to jack this up in pricing at this point in the game. I don't think you're gonna see any housing. If you don't dig a trench and put water, sewer, power, and everything else, 4 or 5 different trenches at different grades at different spaces. And yes, you'll probably find some figures that's $100 more, $1,000 more, but it's a lot more. You go out and try to buy it, and then try to get somebody to be able to do all this construction and get some housing in the next year. I think we really need to look at some of our ordinances and figure out, does this really make sense? Do we need street lights in the woods? So I'm gonna vote for this waiver. I think it's important, and I don't think that this particular developer or any other developer can afford to put everything underground and get it done in a reasonable period when you try to get a contractor, multiple contractors to do an underground job versus the phone company showing up and jacking in 5 poles. I support this.
Thank you. Councilor Lake?
Thank you, Your Honor. We just recently at FOP had something come to us about I believe it was the sewer, where previous council hadn't put the resources to putting redundancy into that line, and we've had a number of issues over at Martell Court because of it. And now we, as a council, and we as taxpayers are having to foot the bill for that. That, I think, was a clear lesson as why we should do things correctly the first time. So I am opposed to this waiver because we should do this correctly the first time and put these things underground. Thank you.
Madison?
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't want to be the only counselor who doesn't speak, so.
For the record, that's not a good reason to speak. Just so you all know.
I've been hemming and hawing over this one for the whole time we've been sitting here, going back and forth. Ultimately, I think I'm going to approve it. I'm gonna vote in favor of the waiver. The reason why is because even if we do bury them along the street, you gotta imagine it's still going above ground at Whitcomb's Mill Road. If something falls on a branch there, they're gonna be without power anyways. So I think it's gonna offer a pretty negligible level of protectiveness for utilities on that street. So, that's all I had to say.
All right. Ready to vote? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
No.
And Counselor Remy?
No.
And Counselor, are you there? Did I hear a no?
I've been here the whole time.
We haven't been hearing your votes then, Counselor. So are you
Oh, I
saying,
voted yes on every one but this. Did no on that.
Can't hear.
yeah, I'm sorry, Counselor, we haven't been hearing your votes when I've been calling your name. But I got that
Oh,
one.
sorry.
Was it a
You
no,
moved on,
Counselor?
I thought you heard me.
Okay.
That was a no.
Counselor Giacomo?
No.
Nice and clear. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Filio? And Counselor Williams?
No.
And Counselor Jones?
No.
And Counselor Madison?
Yes.
And Counselor Ormerod?
Nope.
And Counselor Workman?
Yes.
And Counselor Greenwald?
Yep.
And Counselor Bosley?
No.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
She's not voting.
She can't vote on this one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We got 5 in favor,
6, 7.
7
7
opposed.
opposed. Yep.
So the waiver's not granted. Counselor Greenwald.
Hello again. So if you think that was fun. Another waiver that was requested was regarding our code
No, it's the next one.
for street trees. Committee discussed this, and we ended up 2-2. The code wants trees along the length of the road. My thought on the subject was that there's a lot of trees out there, and it's just, it seems really like a redundant waste of time. So therefore, to move this along, and basically it's dropping the decision on the council. Again, it was a 2-2 vote. This would be to move to recommend resolution R 2023-29A.
Oh, wait. I think you've missed a motion. You should be on the fourth waiver.
The fourth waiver.
Waiver, yes.
Fourth waiver.
Wrong waiver. Okay. Move to thank you, city clerk's right on. Move to recommend the approval of the requested waiver of section 22.3.16A, that there shall be at least one deciduous tree of a minimum 2-inch caliper at planting and of a species approved by the Public Works Director for every 50-foot interval on each side of any new street or extension of any existing street.
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Greenwald, seconded by Counselor Filio. Counselor
So,
Greenwald.
Just very simply, as I said, it was a split vote in committee, and it's in your hands. Those of you that were there at the site visit, you saw it's a wooded street. Seems like a needless expense to me. So approval of this would be to grant the requested waiver.
Any discussion? Counselor Jones.
Sure.
Thank you. I tend to, once again, disagree with the waiver. We, as a council, made that change in the zone, to change it from rural. Yes, we saw trees when we went there, but with that zone change, it can be a desert from now on. There's nothing saying those trees have to stay there. Yes, they're very nice, but I think we made a mistake back when we changed the zone and we allowed the builder to be project specific, which we shouldn't be doing. And I think that was on the minds of a lot of people when we later went on and did the site visit. You can't make them keep those trees there. You gotta have a rule saying at least we want those trees along the road. Trees are very important. We have a designation as a tree city, and we should have trees on that road.
Anyone else on this side? Counselor Workman?
I'm just going to reiterate what I said at MSFI about this issue. I voted in favor of not approving this waiver. And for me, I have faith in the developer. You know, he seemed to want to keep as many trees as possible and just clear the land needed for the development. What I have less faith in are the potential buyers of the homes. We don't know who they will be. We don't know if they will be aware of our ordinances, care about our ordinances, care about the beautification of Keene, care that we are a tree city. So I think having this in place safeguards our intentions. So that's why I'm voting in support to deny this waiver. Thank you.
Counselor Giacomo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Clarification question, I guess, maybe for the attorney, I'm not sure. is it possible to have a conditional waiver?
It's about enforceability, I would think, but
Well,
city
also
attorney?
would point out that these waivers are going in the resolution.
Right, sure, and it would require amending and all that. It's a question of, can we have a conditional waiver, grant a waiver, provided that, to Councilor Workman's point, we need to make sure there is actual enforcement of this. This is an important ordinance that we have in the books. It is very important. I think this lot, with how wooded it is, I would be interested to see if we could have, if they can guarantee natural growth at the same interval or closer than is being required in this ordinance, which would be every 50 feet. If they can confirm that natural growth trees will remain there, then I think I'd be more comfortable with it. But that's what I'm curious about. Is it possible to have a waiver to an ordinance but have it be conditional? We'll only waive it if this is done.
Not in this forum.
Not in this
You're
forum.
kind of getting into probably planning more than the question which is here, which is pretty narrow, just the precise LDC provision that's being waived, yes or no.
Okay. And then I guess the second part of that would then be, does the city has standard right-of-ways on roadways, and there are specific requirements for managing trees on those rights-of-ways that I believe even homeowners have to appeal for. I know we had one of these come before MSFI years ago. Is there a way in here that we can manage it that way to make sure that, is it possible to have trees maintained there that the homeowners can then not go willy-nilly cutting down? I guess that'd be the other question.
If they're on their property, they can cut down whatever trees they want. If it's part of like communal property, then yeah.
Yeah, and being a conservation district, that's why I wasn't sure how the residential conservation district, it's not really communal property, but some of it is. Anyways, it's a weird situation. I do apologize. At the end of it all, I think a 2-inch caliper tree is ridiculous. And I would rather see just leave some of the trees behind, and I would have faith that the developer would do that because it's a wooded area. People want to live in the woods.
And you have to keep in mind that everybody, I mean, they're gonna be selling these houses, and it's on a dead-end street, so this isn't a throughway where the majority of the public is gonna be necessarily. Councilor Filio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I voted in favor of this. As Councilor Greenwald said, we're looking at a rural area in the middle of the woods. All this is trees out here. I have to have more faith in the developer and the homeowner. I think this is a case where I think government overregulates, and it's like, we know best. If people are gonna be buying the home in this area, obviously they wanna buy a home in a rural area. If they didn't want trees, or if they're so much against trees, they're not gonna buy a house in this rural area. This is about as rural as you can get. So I have confidence the homeowners aren't gonna go in and say, hey, I'm gonna buy a $500,000 home in a rural area and I'm gonna clear cut my area. I don't see that happen. I think as elected officials, we have to have a little bit more confidence in that people are gonna invest this money into a house. I'm already nervous from the last vote that we took, is that, I'm not confident this development is gonna happen now. The developer at this last meeting told us about how expensive it's gotten over the time and the delays they've had and the cost of equipment going up. After the last vote we made, I'm not confident this is gonna happen at all. I think if we even go more strict here, I think it's 100% it doesn't happen. And for a council that says we need housing, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Once again, this is a rural area. All there is trees here. I am more confident in the homeowners than to think they're going to clear cut a rural area.
Councilor Bosley?
I agree with Councilor Filio and Greenwald on this. I think that this is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a conservation residential development, that a large portion of this land is going to be protected. It will be left forested. It's going to be abutting our rail trail system. People are going to be buying into this community for that natural essence of what's there. And I think that I have confidence that the people buying into those homes will maintain that.
Councilor Ormerod?
Thank you, Mayor Hansel. I understand this is a rural area, there's lots of trees, but I want to remind my fellow councilors that where the trees are placed is important. If you have trees next to the road, and they're 2-inch caliper now, and they'll be 3 and 4, and they will grow and develop, and they will be shade on the road, which will help protect that. There'll be shade, they'll provide shade on the road as well too. So before we say, oh, there's enough trees there, consider that how the exact placement of a boulevard shaded by trees would be better and more attractive and well worth the cost of small trees now.
Councilor Williams.
One of my favorite things about street trees is the effect they have on traffic, which is they cause drivers to slow down, and that's a huge advantage. I see a concern here with people speeding down that road to get to the end, and I think having it lined with trees will provide some visual block to drivers to maybe slow it down a bit. We've just passed a waiver saying that we're not requiring sidewalks here. So I think from a pedestrian safety point of view, including street trees is a good thing we could do.
All right, further discussion? Yep, Councilor Lake.
Your Honor, just a quick clarifying question. Is the motion to approve the waiver or deny the waiver? It's to approve. Yes, okay, thank you. Approve.
So if you vote yes, then we are going to approve the waiver. If you vote no, then you're voting to deny the waiver. That makes sense? All set? All good? Ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yeah.
And Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
And Counselor Williams?
No.
Counselor Jones?
No.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerod?
No.
Counselor Workman?
Can you repeat the rules again?
If you vote yes, then you approve the waiver. You allow them to not put trees in. If you vote no, then you deny the waiver.
No.
Yes is a no.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
I have 8 in favor, 4 opposed. So the waiver is granted.
Okay.
Councilor Greenwald.
Okay, the end is near. This is good. So therefore, now we're working on the actual resolutions. This would be the return of layout, is that right?
It would be for the acceptance of the warranty deed is the first one.
Is that dash 28?
Yes.
Okay, that changed. Okay, move to recommend the adoption of resolution R 2023-28.
Yes?
There's no letters.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Greenwald, seconded by
Just a
Councilor
point of
Filio.
clarification on that. Is that going to be 28, or because of the amendments, does that go to a 28A?
No,
No.
those waivers are in the second
Okay,
resolution.
Right.
thank you very much.
If you had voted that last one down, it would have triggered it.
Thank you.
All right.
We have a motion to adopt. I didn't hear a second.
Second.
We need it anyway?
Because it's this one.
28 is fine, but we don't need a B. Right, okay.
29.
Oh, 20, yeah.
I got it.
Oh. All right, any further discussion?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
did we have a second on the motion to
Yes,
adopt?
from Councilor Filio.
Thank you.
Councilor Jones.
All we heard was a number. We didn't hear what the resolution is.
Resolution R 2023-28, a resolution for the acceptance of a warranty deed for Brookfield Lane.
Councilor Jones.
Just to remind the council that this is not yet Brookfield Lane. This is whatever the council decides to call it. If we want to call it George Hansel Road, we can do that. Right now, it's.
I discourage
The
that.
developer does not name. The developer does not name the street. We do. And by passing this, we will, I like Brookfield Lane, I'm fine with that. But I just want to make sure that councilors know that if they did want to change the name, now is the time to do it.
Oh, I think we need more time.
Okay, that's a good note, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Ormerod?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yep.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Counselor Jones?
Now, Mr. Mayor, it is officially Brookfield Lane.
Okay. Number 2?
Okay.
Or-
Would you like me to read it by the resolution? Resolution R 2023-29A, a resolution for the layout of Brookfield Lane and utilities and public improvements.
Counselor Greenwald.
Therefore, moving for the adoption of Resolution R 2023-29A.
Second.
We have a motion from Council.
It's B.
What?
It does need to be amended because one of the waivers was denied. The second one, I believe.
So you just have to make a motion to remove the language that is section 2022.3.7.d, underground street lighting, feed, and utilities.
Yes.
So
Thank
we
you,
have-
Counselor.
So we have a motion
Second.
moved.
by Counselor Greenwald, seconded by Counselor Bosley to remove that language. Is that clear to everybody? All right, so we ready for a vote on that amendment? All the councils, will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Ormerod?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And the amendment's adopted. Now we have a B version. Counselor Greenwald for a motion to adopt the B version. So
Okay.
you need a motion to adopt R-2023-29-B.
Dash B. So moved.
We have a motion from Counselor Greenwald,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Filio. Any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Well, oh, Counselor Jones, sorry about that.
Yeah, there was a lot of important questions that were brought up by the citizens with this. One was the intersection of Route 9 and Whitcomb's Mill Road. I know you sent a letter. I know our Public Works Director is on a committee that works with the state. We do have to show data, which kind of moves us up on there. And I think we can now show the data with these new dwellings that average, well, the state right now average says 10 car movements per day per dwelling. I think that's a lot more nowadays because people are getting deliveries all the time. Nobody's shopping anymore. Everybody's got home deliveries coming all the time and everything else. I think there is a concern that the city needs to address, and that is delivery trucks and residents that want to avoid that bridge because it's only has a light limit, are going to be cutting through Langdon Place. And that's something that I think staff can work out with the Langdon Place staff. I don't think we can do anything here. When you drive through Langdon Place, when you get to the end, you can't even tell that you're on Whitcomb's Mill Road. There's nothing designating that. You just all of a sudden are on the road. There's no stop sign, there's no line on the road, there's nothing. I think there's something that needs to be done there. I was talking to one of the transportation commissioners, and he did say exactly what Court said, that the more data you show, the better off you are on that list, because that is a failed intersection, and we've had people get hurt badly there. So I just want to assure the public that we are going to be working on that. When you stop to make that left turn coming eastbound, the people behind you are coming over a hill. They can hardly see you as you're there with a blinker. There's no turning lane. There's a little bit more visibility coming westbound, but I still think we need turning lanes both ways. And I think we need to assure the public that we are going to work with the state in correcting that.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. I actually just today got a letter back from the DOT Commissioner Cass with apologies for responding so late to when we contacted him about this. But he says that the intersection is actually up for reevaluation in October. And so if there's any information that we can share with them between then and now to inform them during their reevaluation, I think that would be timely. Councilor Filio?
To follow up on that, Your Honor, we did request at the committee level to city staff to do just that, to go to the state, let them know about this potential development and have them report back to us. So I'm sure it kind of went on the heels of your letter, so they have been notified.
And if we can do that before October, it sounds like it would be good timing. All right. Any further discussion? You ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yeah.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes?
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omorad?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
And that is unanimously adopted. And we have retirement resolution number 2.
We have a memorandum from the Human Resources Director relative to Resolution R 2023-30, and it reads, Resolution R 2023-30, a resolution in appreciation of Christopher C. Staples upon his retirement.
Councilor Powers for motion, Councilor Bosley for a second, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2023-30.
Second?
We have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Councilor Powers.
I could go on long and long about this particular individual. This is a guy you hate to see go. Just a natural leader and a natural ability to know what he's supposed to do before he gets there. If you've ever had an opportunity, I know some of you do, listen to a call. When the captain goes out, he's only got a little information. And on the way, trying to decide what to do, what he might do. But he's already decided, he's evaluated, and he's able to tell everybody what you'd like to get done, and you'd never know it was important. It's just one tone, one ability to speak that you really want to follow his directions. Great guy. Sorry he retired, but he's a very talented individual. At the same time, he knows engines and trucks and cars like nobody else I've ever seen. Very helpful in the fire department. His side business, what he does, he's been able to help us through a lot of times. And he not only was with the city of Keene for almost 21 years, he served 2.5 years at Fire Mutual Aid as a dispatcher. Probably where he got that calm tone when it went out. But excellent employee, great person. I hope he comes in a couple of weeks and accepts his plaque, because you're all going to enjoy. He'll have something to say, and you'll listen to hear what you can hear from him as he speaks. Great guy.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes?
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omorad?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 3.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to Resolution R 2023-31. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the adoption of the resolution, and we have Resolution R 2023-31, a resolution relating to the appropriation of funds from the sewer fund unassigned fund balance for the Martell Court Pump Station bypass.
I'm looking for a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2023-31.
Second?
We have a motion from Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Councilor Powers.
Once again, we're back to the sewer pump station project. You've heard a lot about it, and this is the beginning of the movement to try to make some corrections. However, we need to fund it. So what this does is moves $400,000 from the sewer fund, undesignated fund balance to the Martell Court Pump Station bypass project. It's important that we pass this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Counselor Madison.
Thank you, Your Honor. I brought this up during the FOP meeting, but I figured I would also bring it up here. A lot of this came about during the major flooding we had this past summer, when the pump station suffered a failure. We did have a city employee come back from his vacation and work in the pump station in raw sewage for 36 straight hours. So during FOP, we took time to recognize his efforts, and I think it's appropriate to recognize his efforts here at the council level as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for a vote? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Remy? Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Heard it. Okay. Counselor Giacomo?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Omerod?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
And Counselor Powers?
Yes.
That is unanimous. Number 4.
We have a memorandum from the Finance Director relative to Resolution R 2023-32, and it is a resolution relating to fiscal policies.
And this will be referred to the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee. I want to thank you all for your time and attention tonight. We stand adjourned.